Wonderful. Thanks, Jay. Love that. Absolutely love that. So on your chairs, you'll see one of these, which is the current events list. Just to run through some of these. So we're a fair way down the list now. So things to bring to your attention. Simply Group is at here on Thursday the 13th. Simply Group is here at 8 o'clock. Youth Group on Friday is at the Mega Centre. Book Club is at ours tonight. And I've also got to tell you there's a leaders meeting next Sunday at 8 o'clock. Not sure if that's on Zoom or in person. So if you're a leader, then please come along to that. They are compulsory leaders meetings. We do want as many people as possible to come to that because we can really set vision, download information, and also pray for you guys as well. Right, what else we've got to tell you? Shoebox deadline is today. Is anyone still sitting on the shoebox? Yeah, and get that to us as soon as possible. Don't worry, we did the deadline today because actually it's next week, so give us a week to actually kind of like make sure we get it. If you can get that to us this week, or let us know, we can come and pick it up. That'd be really good. Do you have a current number? The current tally? 62 we're currently on. So we had 66 last year. I think we're going to beat that total because there's a number of the youth ones still to come in. So that'd be fantastic. Thank you so much for that. There is a DTI sleepover this month. I think that's at our house on the 22nd. So if your youth member went to DTI, or if your youth member didn't go to DTI, if you're just got a youth member in your household, they can come along to that. Sleepover at our house on the 22nd. And also the same night, it's the men's bricks and beer bowling competition. I loosely put the word competition at the end of that. We'll see who the competitive ones are when they get a bowling ball in their hands. I'm going to have to own up to that. I'm ridiculously competitive when it comes to bowling. Lego Sunday is here on the following day, on the 23rd, and Rayleigh Lights is fast approaching. That's on the 27th. That's the switch on in the town centre that we normally attend. Anything else that I missed on you? Don't think so. Cool. Right. Well, if you didn't know, I've been in Peru for 2 weeks. You know that. Loads of thank yous to go around the church. Loads of people stepped up and did things that I wasn't around to do. Mainly Freddie duty, I have to say. Freddie the dog has been well looked after by Bart and Vicky and everybody who stepped in to actually walk him when we couldn't during the day. So thank you for that very much. Thank you if you did more church. Thank you for the sign out front, Adrian and Jane. Where's Jane? Jane's suffering with the we're doing loads of paint and drills in your house for a week. So thank you for that, Jane. If you haven't seen the sign outside, it actually lights up at night. And actually, you have to see the lights working because it is quite bold and quite good. So we haven't had a complaint from the neighbours yet. We'll see. Also, if you stepped up in the office, stepped up in church, really thank you so much. There was so much to do the last couple of weeks. It was a busy couple of weeks anyway. But thank you so much for everything that went on while I was in Peru. And also to say, picture on the left there, prayer team. Got me through the flights, got me through 2 flights. Thank you so much. Anyone that was praying for me. Flying is not my favourite occupation. There was 0 turbulence on the way out there for 12 hours, which I totally put down to prayer. And coming back, I thought, I need to nail this a little bit more. I need to really kind of like, press into this because people are praying for me. I need to face this head on. I was preaching about David and Goliath a couple of weeks ago about facing your giants. And for me, that is one of my giants. And it was much, much better. I had a couple of wobbly moments walking around the plane and you're thinking, 37,000 feet up, I'm zooming to my death. But once I've controlled that thought and did what I needed to do with it in the heavenlies, it worked. So thank you so much for that. If you prayed for me, for any of the stuff out there. I'm going to go through a few pictures now to show you what went on in Peru. A few highlights. So actually, having talked about the plane journey, the journey out of the airport to Lima itself was far more dangerous than the actual flight itself. So the traffic in Peru is in Lima is the worst in South America. I've probably only seen worse traffic, I think, in Israel. We've been around the world a couple of times. It is appalling. There are no rules. There are no kind of niceties. There's bidding everywhere. It's very, very difficult to see who's got rights of way, and it's just seems to be the person with the fastest, the fastest car, the most bolshiest driving, really. So once you get used to it, it's actually quite fun. It's like going around and doing track at Silverstone. It's like trying to, weave in and out of Yastri and Verstappen and all those people. It is quite an experience, really. And this was something that was going on. So I took this picture because above there, they had these huge, great billboards, but they were electronic billboards, and they were putting this one up. So all these like a jigsaw, they put it together. But underneath, all they've got is this like flimsy net with like cars going underneath. If one of those falls, somebody's going to get garroted in their car. So health and safety in Peru is a completely different thing. I'll go through other pictures to show you that. But it's quite an experience, shall we say, in another country. Not to criticise them because they have they have better things than we do out there. Next one, click. So this is Guillermo here. Guillermo with the t-shirt on there, and Lisette right in the middle, the lady smiling. They run a church called Casa de Jesus, which means House of Jesus, over in Ladeiros. And it's probably the poorest church I've ever come across. It is a very poor area of Lima, but they've got this kind of vision to reach out to people who are on the really on the breadline, who don't have enough food to survive the week, let alone the day. And they just do this church out there, and they're just the most wonderful people. They're just so friendly, so lovely. Guillermo doesn't speak a word of the English, and my Spanish is like broken to say the best. But I thought, I'm going to do this. I'm going to try and speak to him, and I actually communicated 2 or 3 sentences in my broken Spanish, and I think he understood me. So we did have a conversation because he's such a lovely guy. And last time I went out there, I couldn't have a conversation with him at all unless we had an interpreter. So this time I'm going to nail it. So I did my broken Spanish, and I think he got generally what I was saying. But a lovely, lovely couple, small church, but they want to build a house in Casa de Jesus. I'm not quite sure if that's the name of the town or the name of the church, Casa de Jesus. They want to build a house for people who are really, really struggling. That's their vision. Where they're going to get the money from, that's down to God completely. But lovely, lovely people. And if I show you this picture here, so this is the picture in the west of Lima. This goes out to the sea, the Pacific Ocean. If you look up the hillside there, there's houses all the way up, or structures all the way up. The higher you go up that hillside, that mountain, the higher you are in your house, the poorer you are. Because the only land that's free or cheap in Lima, such a big city, and there's no land anywhere, is up on the hillsides. So the higher up you go, the poorer you are. So you can see the poor areas around the place completely. Lima's surrounded by mountains and hills, and you can see the devastation and the deprivation. It really is kind of in your face all the time. It's really quite stark. There are other parts of Lima that are nice and fairly affluent, but largely speaking, it's these hills and mountains where they're just piled on top of each other. Click. This is Santi on the left, Santiago, which means James in Spanish. He's the boy we prayed for 2 years ago. This is the miracle baby. So Rod and Kayla, who run the church in La Molina, that's their son, who's going to be 2 at Christmas. He's the miracle baby we prayed for. He's absolutely dead gorgeous. And he knows it. He really knows it. He's absolutely lovely and stole the show so many times. On the right here, this is Arthur. Arthur is from Plymouth. He runs the Peru UK partnership with the vineyards. He's my mate, and he's kind of in charge. So he's my boss when I'm in Lima. He's lovely. And some of you recognise Tonio being silly there in front of the camera. Tonio came with Deborah here a couple of years ago to spend some time in the UK. I've spent loads of time with Tonio and Deborah. They were absolutely fantastic and so kind and so helpful. Thank you. Tonio's here on the side there, Deborah's at the other end, and this is Rod and Kayla, Santiago's parents in the middle. They got a chance to actually talk about their church and we prayed for them. This is Liliana and Israel at the end there. They are from Ladeiros, which is the church that Guillermo, the first guy I showed you, he planted and left to them, and the church is thriving. We went to Ladeiros, I'll show you some photos about that in a minute. But this is their church and some of the leaders. being prayed for when we were at the retreat, which is how we started. Click. This is also at the retreat. So this is downtime, if you can call it downtime. So we went with a risk assessment from the UK. I'm not sure if they understand what risk assessment means in Peru, because they were using, this was a bonfire one night in the 4-day retreat, and they were jumping over the bonfire. The guys were jumping over, daring each other, jump over, see who could not get burnt, which thankfully was no one. But I'm thinking, leaning over to Arthur saying, I don't think there's a risk assessment in the world that would cover this activity. There's also Peru against the UK at football, but only 2 of us were playing football from the UK, so it was a little one-sided, so we mixed and matched a little bit. But we had lots of fun there. This is a monastery, this is a monastery behind that is used for retreats as well. So this is the church for Rodney Taylor, Santi's church on the left-hand side here. Where it says Alpacu, that's a shop, but underneath it, that blue door that's open, that leads up to the church, which is the 1st and 2nd floor on this building. So churches don't look like churches in this country. They're not like steeples and like, hundreds of years old. They're office blocks and they're in the middle of housing estates. Unless you actually go by and it says something about Dios on it, which means God, you wouldn't know it was a church. But there's no kind of like ceremonial kind of like magnificent buildings apart from the cathedral in Lima that we saw. And this, I took this special shot for Adrian. This is the glowing cross, just to show you what it's like inside. So this is inside La Molinas, the 1st floor. This is what their worship it was like. If you watch me online, you can still see it on YouTube. When I preached to this service, I was actually standing just in front of the cross there. It's the long office block there. Click. And this is me in front of the church. They get someone to do a selfie every Sunday. I can't do selfies, so I'm quite proud of this shot. I am not the selfie king at all. For some reason, I just seem to muck it up. But that's a selfie of everyone at La Molina, and that's the band. If you're looking the other way, coming back this way, that's the band that will lead in worship there. Worship there is extraordinarily intimate. Something about singing Spanish, something about the way they do it. It's just lovely. I mean, what we have here is fantastic. I love the worship here. What they have there is just as good and just really, really kind of like just grabs you. I found myself kind of like unwittingly kind of singing in tongues so many times because the worship just grabs you with the words. If you know the song, well, I knew all the songs because of the tune, but couldn't remember some of the words that I was speaking Spanish. So I started playing in tongues and it just grabs you and just pulls you through the whole worship. And just like the intimacy with Jesus is just really, really fantastic. This is Carlos. He's the guy that drove me back from the airport. Carlos is known as the Englishman because he is so reserved and so quiet, never said the word. So they nicknamed him the Englishman. The Peruvians are very like the English, funnily enough. So in South America, Peru is probably the most like the UK in its reservedness and its kind of like kind of expression kind of thing. I mean, to us, they're like the Italians. But to the rest of South America, they are very, very reserved. This is Santi, and this is Isabel, whose birthday was that day, and Bella behind. So these are all cousins, these kids. Bella was the girl I stayed with. I'll show you a picture of them in a sec. Click. Louise, who's with us from Bury St Edmunds, her and her husband Mark were with us. It was her 60th birthday on the Sunday, which was a lovely event to celebrate. Boy, did they do a party in Peru. They know about their food and their drink and everything. And this is Happy the dog, who is almost identical to Freddie, except he's about 1/10 of the size. Little Jack Russell, absolutely gorgeous. And most houses in Peru have a dog because they're good burglar deterrents, good burglar alarms. So quite a lot of crime in Lima. Click. So this is the people I stayed with. Joel on the left there, Raquel on the right in that left-hand picture. They're married. Joel is a force of nature. It's like Earth, Wind, Fire and Joel. It's unbelievable. He's such a charismatic, really kind of busy guy, but he's not Peruvian, he's Colombian. Colombians are different from Peruvians, as he's pointed out to me many, many times. Whereas Raquel is Peruvian, she's from Lima, and Raquel's parents are these two here. So Ishmael and Hilda, with Isabel in the middle, so they are Raquel's parents. Ishmael and Hilda were like the the overall leaders for the Peruvian vineyard churches. So the kind of the John and Debbie Wright of Peru. And this was Isabel's birthday on the Sunday. Click. There we go, Ron and Kale again there with Santi and Isabel. And this is Joel in his traditional Colombian bag and hat, which he was very proud to show me. And he insisted, they're going to Colombia for Christmas, him and his wife for a month, and he insisted on buying me some coffee there. He said, you come back again, Dave, then I can give you the coffee I bought you from Colombia. So the Colombians do coffee, the Peruvians do food, the Chileans do wine, and that's what they're famous for. Click. This was a hotel in Lima that we went to. This is all the team from the UK with Rod and Kayla. So I'm actually where the P is of Peru there, taking the picture. Mark and Louise, Arthur and Sarah, and Helen at the end, Mahal, and the other ones. This is a pisco sour. Be careful when I say this. Pisco sour, this is. I keep calling it a pesky sour. Pisco is a city in the where this comes from. And it's the most wonderful sweet and sour drink. It's got limes in it, and it's got egg whites, and it's got some alcohol, but no one would tell me what the alcohol actually was. But whatever it is, it's very, very strong. So one drink was really, really, really strong to take. But this Hotel Bolivar it would be a 5-star hotel in Lima, except it doesn't have a swimming pool, it doesn't have a car park. But everything else about it is 5-star. But the price of staying there for one night is cheaper than a Premier in Basildon. That's the difference in prices between us and Peru. So if you ever go back to Lima, this is the place to stay, Hotel Bolivar. It's named after Simon Bolivar, who is the guy that gave his name to Bolivia. So he's a very kind of famous person for the last 100 or so years, whose name is all over South America. Click. This is the cathedral in Lima, and they are fascinated by dead bodies. Dead bodies everywhere. If you go to a funeral in South America, they have the open casket and everything. It's a weird kind of thing. This was in the crypt underneath, loads of bones, loads of famous bones from famous saints. So their history is very, very checkered, but they don't seem to care about that. They'll tell you everything about the history, good and bad, across the church here. Amazing building, but quite macabre as well. Click. Oh, Paddington. I've seen this statue in London. There was a thing in London a couple of years ago about statues of Paddington all over the place. This statue was in Hyde Park by the Serpentine, and what they do is, like they do in Southend, they auction them all off after the summer, after the season, and they either sent this to Peru or Peruvian bought it. Because Paddington's not a big thing in Peru, but it's gaining kind of a little bit of gravitas because of the 3 films that are now out. And this is Miraflores, which is like the resort, the very, very posh resort in the Lima. That's the kind of Lima by the seaside. And the light you can see right at the end there at the bay, that's the cross, that's the church. So where Adrian has fantastically put us on the map with the cross here and the sign, that's exactly the same in Lima. So any church of any kind of size or any kind of gravitas had a lighted cross like that. So you can see it from miles away and see what it is. It's absolutely lovely. You can see the churches everywhere. It's amazing. But this is probably the saddest point of the whole trip, the most poignant. We spent the evening in a restaurant, then went into Starbucks, got a coffee, and then as we drove out to the shopping centre, about a car park, we passed a building on the left-hand side. It was like a building with railings outside, quite a fairly kind of like posh building, because they all like Miraflores. And on the railings was like pictures. There's like like A4 pictures, but someone's face there and words underneath. And next to it was another picture. Next to it was another picture, another picture. So we said to Rod, who was driving us, she said, "So what's that on the gate? Why are there so many pictures there? What is that building?" He said, "Oh, that's the hospital." He said, "So what are the pictures on there?" And he said, "Those are pictures of the doctors that died during COVID." And we went round the corner, and the pictures go on and on and on and on and on. We drove all the way around this long bend, thinking, where's this going to end? Because it's a fair-sized hospital, and it just went the railings all the way around. It must have been well over 100 pictures on this. Now, I didn't count them because we were going to buy too fast. But it was like thinking, wow, we think we had it bad here, and we had the vaccine earliest, and we could vaccinate ourselves or whatever was going on with that. But in other parts of the world, it was devastating, and to the professionals as well as the people on the ground, so to speak. So it really, really touching moment. It was like the journey back was an hour in the car. It was like, I don't think anyone said a word. We were so touched by what we'd seen. Really, really kind of brought it home what a different country can be like sometimes. This is something I want to talk to you about as well. This is Central Hope. So there's 4 churches in Lima. Joel on the picture of the back. Joel on the right, on the left. Raquel on the right. You see Deborah there as well next to Joel. This is Myra and Abby. And we work at Central Hope, which is a therapy centre, which basically helps anybody struggling with anything with their mental health. So anybody with panic attacks, anybody that's depressed, anybody that's suicidal, anybody with marriage problems, anybody that's a counselling centre basically, which is fairly rare in Peru to do that, but they are so good at what they do, but they are underfunded, as any place is, even in the UK you get that. And also, there isn't enough, they're not covered by prayer enough. So I have said to Joel, my very good mate here, who is running the centre with his wife Raquel at the end, I've said to him every Wednesday I will cover him in prayer. And I've really dogged you in this as well, guys, because I said every Wednesday I will cover them in prayer, so they make sure they're not attacked by the enemy, all that kind of stuff, get prayer cover. But I said I will get someone from here, from the UK, to do it Thursdays as well. So if anyone wants to volunteer to do that, to pray for this wonderful, wonderful centre in Lima, I would love you to do that. It just means when you wake up on a Thursday, cover the whole day in prayer. If you can pray all day, great. But if it's just like every couple of hours, just pray that the Lord will cover them in prayer, or even at the start of the day, pray the Lord will cover them all the way that day. That'd be fantastic. If you want to do that, give me a shout. I've said I promised you, so I've thrown you under the bus for that one. But it would be really good if we could do that. So this is the team, the same picture, yeah. So they're all trained therapists. Abby is a lovely girl. So she works at the church also with Rod Kayla, the one in the office block. And she's from Ecuador, and she decided that she had to learn English if she wanted to kind of get on in life. And so she started watching Friends. So her English is a very American accent, but that's how she learned English, was always watching Friends over and over and over again. So we had loads of conversations about different catchphrases from Friends, different things. We talked for hours doing that. Maya in the middle, she's the quietest of the 5. She really, really kind of like, didn't push herself forward at all. And she led worship on the Sunday that I came, before I came home, we were preaching in a different church. And she led the worship with a guy on guitar, a drummer, and a girl on keyboards. And I've never seen anyone change so much spiritually, I don't think ever. She changed into this amazing worship leader. She was fantastic in the way she sang, the way she played guitar. The worship was just off the chart brilliant. And you would never have known it was the same person if I hadn't realised it was the girl from Central Hope Centre. Really, really fantastic. Very, 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 really gifted girl. Hey. So after the first day of the get together with the pastors, this was me at 3 o'clock in the morning. It was so exciting because we had so much good stuff going on. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep because of the time difference and everything. It was so hard to get a decent night's sleep. And I was so wired. Some of you may have seen that picture already. I just had to send it because I knew in the UK it would have been about 8 o'clock in the morning, so I sent the message out. And on the right there, so I think that looks like a Doctor Who monster, personally. But that is a main dish, a really amazing dish in Lima. It's something like green tortellini or something. So that's pasta underneath. I think it might be egg on top, but it's a very, very famous dish in Lima. But I thought I'd show you that, some of the differences in the food. Hey. On the left here, this is, sometimes you see around like a man with a van, somebody that wants to go and do moves and stuff, got his own van. This is man with a van, Lima style, so they can put anything they want to on the back of their van. And this is the guy who is sold out for Jesus, puts this on the back of his van. I thought, I'd take a picture of that, just to show you that the whole kind of blurring between state and church is much less obvious there. So on buses, you'll get like a bus driver will put on his cab, put like for the love of Jesus. Lots and lots of kind of like Christian sayings and pictures and kind of anecdotes and churches, loads of things that are much more kind of prevalent than these here. And this is the couple that stayed with Bella. I'm going to show you Joel and Raquel and Bella, their 5-year-old. Absolutely fantastic. They were such wonderful hosts while I was out there. They really, really looked after me. Really, really enjoyed myself. Heck, still going. Got a little bit of time left. This is the President's Palace. This is the central square in Peru. That's me next to a lovely thing that we've done there. But the president, the outgoing president, was a lady whose last day was last Saturday, not yesterday, Saturday beforehand in Lima. And they had parties across Lima because she was so bad at what she did. They were pleased to see her go. So they had parties kind of like, you know, to wave her off. A little bit like when Margaret Thatcher died and they had lots of parties and that sort of stuff. And the new president was sworn in the following day. But they've had now 8 presidents in 11 years. And that's really not unusual to have a president to last about 6 months. So 3 of the last 8 are in prison because of their conduct while they're in office. And if you just look, I think if you just see, you probably can't, but where that big black door is, just underneath that, there's some people walking about there. The president was actually there. The guy that was going in was actually getting out of the car. I was told it was him anyway, so, but we were so far away, we could get used to shot of him. But that's what the centre of Peru looks like. Click. This is us at Central Hope, big silly on the stairs. This is the therapy centre. The other thing to say about the therapy centre is that I want to start something where we can sponsor some of the people that go along. So what happens is Joel and Raquel, they never turn anyone away. So somebody comes in who needs therapy but can't afford anything or can afford very little, they just take on another client and they spend more time kind of looking after the client, counselling the client, praying for the client. And the client can't pay the full rate, which means that Joel and Raquel don't get paid well. They're working all the hours called sends. They're going to Colombia at the end of December. It's their first holiday for 3 years. So I want to sponsor some of these people. I'm not quite sure I'm going to do that. So just to bear that in mind, it's going to cost roughly £10 a week to sponsor one of their clients. I think we can do that as a church. And that's a £10 a week, it costs 20 weeks. That's £200. Now, I'm not forcing anyone here to do that, but if you want to, there's something that grabs your attention, you want to help somebody who's underprivileged in a different country, then I will set something up to do that. I'm certainly going to do that. We'll see how many we can support doing that. This is Hesson and Rachel, absolutely lovely people. So they were at the other church, which is Santa Anita, which is the main church in Lima, the main Vineyard church, and they could not have been more helpful. When you run a church, one of the things you really need are people that do things. And if people do things that you do, so therefore I don't have to do them, or even do something that I didn't even think about, that is gold dust to a church leader. It's just so lovely because it means that I can get on with the vision setting, talks, and kind of leading the church from like a different position. These guys are like that, so helpful. He stuck to me like glue. And when I was preaching, he was also my interpreter, but he's got like such wonderful English, really amazing. And Rachel was a bit like Joel. She's a force of nature, just lovely, just so enthusiastic. And anytime we prayed for her, she cried for about 15 minutes because she was so happy to be cried for, or there was pain coming up, or she was worshipping. She was so expressive. I mean, I was totally out of my comfort zone praying for her, thinking, what's this woman do? But just so into the Lord, so lovely, so warm, so cuddly, so fantastic. Really lovely people, thinking, well, the church can't go far with people like them to help them out. Take on to our leisurely activities. This is Diego, one of my friends. Oh, he's lovely, Diego. He's 26. This was his 26th birthday. We went to this beach called the Silencio Beach, which basically means the silent beach. But partly because if you look around the cliffs on the side, no noise comes down from the town, so all you can hear is the sea. Absolutely gorgeous beach. And this is Diego's birthday. Diego is kind of the spiritually adopted son of Raquel and Joel. Raquel and Joel used to lead a church down in Arequipa in the south, and they came back from that, and Diego followed them from Arequipa. It was his birthday. So loads of anniversaries out there and stuff. And this is the most wonderful beach. I'm cold, that is 6. I've got another picture from that. Click. This is Bella, Raquel and Joel's 5-year-old daughter who we stayed with. This is her dancing Creole in Lima. This is at her school. So they invited me to the school to see this kind of kids production. So, well, if you got on a trip to Lima, like a package tour, you'd never have got this kind of access to things. Absolutely fantastic. Creole is a kind of a very slow, a very fast reggae kind of beat to it, and it's a special dance they do to it. Absolutely lovely. But they started the meeting, so it's a school meeting with parents watching the kids. They started the meeting with health and safety, quite rare in Peru to start with that, but they started with, if there's an earthquake, this is what you should do. So they had an earthquake back in Peru in June, and it struck at 11:05 on a Sunday. So you can Google Peru earthquake Sunday, June, whatever it is, and you can see like cathedrals where they're filming the service and the whole thing shakes, and all the chandeliers shake and everything as the earthquake hit. It wasn't a bad one, was enough to make you think about, well, maybe they need to do a procedure. So that's what they said. It wasn't like, here are the fire doors. It was, here are the earthquake doors in Peru. And this was the same night. This was Halloween night. They were trying to do an anti-Halloween thing, and we went out to the local lake, and this was a dinosaur costume. Somebody that dressed up in Peru. Click. This is Diego on his 26th birthday. Really, really lovely. This is his favourite meal. Might not look very appetising, but absolutely gorgeous. This yellow sauce, I don't know what it was. Something to do with saffron, I think. But it's absolutely lovely. There was pesto over pasta with steak and then half potatoes with this sauce. Absolutely gorgeous. The food is very like English, but with spices. But they put the spices in a separate bowl. So you don't get spice, you just leave that to one side. I was well in my level there. Fantastic. Click. Nearly done. Nearly done. This is a map of Peru. Don't know where Peru is. So it's on the west coast of South America, Pacific Ocean. I actually got to put my feet in the Pacific Ocean, which I've been wanting to do for years, which is a really lovely treat for me. I'm very much into geography, and it was very nice to see the Pacific Ocean, but actually get in it. And it's a really powerful ocean as well. Those waves are not taking any prisoners. So that's where we're staying. It's the top red dot, which is Lima. The one below is where the beach was, so it was a fair old drive to get down there. The click. This is me and Joel on the beach. Joel is the king of selfies. He's like the opposite. Joel is like the opposite to me. Think about what on my traits. Joel is completely the opposite. So we clicked fantastically. We bonded into this like one whole of kind of person, really, really, really amazing. And this was him being buried in the sand by his wife and daughter. Next one. This is a really nice moment. Click. So on the same beach, we went there about 3:30, and the sun goes down about 6:30. And this beach is famous for everyone just sits there and watches the sun go down. And it's the most amazing kind of like spiritual experience. Well, if you've ever seen the sun dip below the horizon with the sea, it's such a fantastic thing. But as it gets to kind of that point where the sun is just about to disappear, everybody's kind of standing at the beach, staring at the horizon, seeing the sun go down. Everyone's quiet. Everyone stays because they're obviously getting colder as the sun disappears. Everyone stayed there from their trips out to the beach for their picnics and stuff. Everyone's just staring, watching the sun go down. And it's like everyone's in the same place, everyone's silent, and it's just the most amazing experience. Seeing the sunset over the Pacific was absolutely fantastic. One of the moments of my life. That was really, really incredible. And again, another hotel. So Arthur and Sarah who were with us were celebrating their 30th wedding anniversary, and they stayed in a very, very exclusive hotel down in Paracas, which again was cheaper than a Premier Inn and was like a 5-star hotel. It's amazing. So if you want to go to Peru, that's the place to go. So just run through these last few. That is the sunset over the Pacific on the road. Just absolutely gorgeous. And of course, the sun goes down quite quickly there because it's virtually above you most of the time. But just count the last year. This is Laderas, which is the church that Guillermo planted before he went off to the poorer place. And this is what the church looks like. So it's literally a block of houses. And it's 3 floors. This is the top floor. So they've cut the top floor into this hillside, basically with diggers and stuff. And they're building like a barbecue area out there. So the tops of buildings in Lima, because it never rains in Lima, something like, ridiculous, like 1% rain a year, something small. So the tops of their buildings are all open. So there's basketball courts, there's herb gardens, there's table tennis tables, there's loads of things. There's a church with its barbecue on top like that. The top floors are kind of like the gardens, basically. And this is the inside of Madeira's, again with this cross, another fantastic cross. I couldn't work out if the cross was part of the concrete beams or not. I couldn't work out, I actually touched it, I couldn't work out if it was wooden or if it was actually part of the beams. Really, really beautiful. This is the church in Madeira's that Guillermo planted and gave to Liliana and Israel. And this was really what we went for, really. This is getting the churches to sign a partnership agreement to say what's going to happen next in Peru. So the whole reason for going out there was to help them on the next stage to becoming like a nation of vineyard churches, like the UK is, like America, Canada, Kenya, Australia. There's about 16 around the world, and Peru is on the way to that. So we wanted them to sign an agreement to say this is what we're going to do next. So they've now got one of the churches that is the facilitator. This is David, who runs the biggest church, with the guys I was talking about, Herschel and Rachel. He was signing on behalf of him and his wife. And it was basically, the last couple of slides, last couple of pictures. This is the main vineyard where it all started, La Viña Santa Anita. And this is what they put up on Facebook. I don't know where they got this picture from. I can't think where it was though, because it's kind of, I quite like the picture actually, thinking, oh, very, very stern. But I don't know where it's come from, because they certainly didn't ask me for it. But this is just them advertising the fact that they're going to be doing Holy Communion and church. Last two, click. This is inside Santa Anita. This is Myra to lead the worship off the scale of William. And you see all the words in Spanish. So my Spanish, I say, is kind of a bit broken. I can get probably 4 words in 10, so you can get the general gist of what's being sung. But generally, I was just kind of like translating it into English because I knew the English song. And last one, that's me preaching on the stage in Santa Anita. I was the only one wearing shorts because it was so hot, and I thought I got a sweat about my shorts, but I felt a little bit out-of-dressed on the day. That's me trying to use the example of Harry Potter and the invisibility cloak with a Union Jack blanket.